for our presentation from ROWE. In a second, I'll let Haley introduce the speakers. Hopefully this will be our first and last virtual joint meeting. I know we're all looking forward to getting back in person, but as the news has shown, it's just not something we can do just yet. And on top of that, ASCE its guidance is not to. But hopefully everyone's doing well. We'll be able to get together soon. Without anything else to say, I'll let Haley take over to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, James. So thank you everyone for joining the meeting today. Our guest speakers for the February presentation are Mike Labadie and Jill Bauer from ROWE Professional Services Company. Mike joined ROWE in 2018 with nearly 40 years of experience completing transportation engineering projects throughout Michigan. He is based in the ROWE Farmington Hills office. Projects have included intersection operation studies, corridor studies, citywide traffic studies, signal system studies, roadway design projects, development impact studies, environmental impact statements, and traffic safety projects for clients ranging from small communities to the Michigan Department of Transportation. Jill first joined ROWE in 2005. She is based in the ROWE corporate office in Flint, and her experience has been focused mostly on design and analysis of traffic and transportation projects. Jill leads roadway design projects, traffic signal design projects, intersection operation studies, corridor studies, development impact studies, and traffic safety projects for private developers, local communities, and the Michigan Department of Transportation. Their presentation will be on the Pontiac Silverdome site redevelopment for Amazon. And I will pass it over to Mike and Jill.
All right, thank you, Haley. I will go ahead and share my screen. Pull up our PowerPoint presentation here. All right, that's showing on the screen for everyone.
Yep.
Yep, okay. All right, so in 2019, we were approached by a developer for redevelopment of the Silverdome site. This is our presentation of the traffic analysis for that. I guess starting off, we wanted to talk about what the existing conditions were out there. We have a couple photos here of the Silverdome back in its heyday. Then I don't know how much all of you might have remembered. It might not have been discussed on the west side, but they had that failed implosion first time around. So no matter the state of the Silverdome at the time, didn't quite want to come down first attempt. But the second time around, it fully imploded. And a little fun fact here, I don't notice.
Can you hear me, Jill?
Yeah.
Okay. Something for them to all note. Look at all the cars in the parking lot while they're blowing that up. So those cars happen to be the Volkswagen recall cars, the ones where they violated the emission standards. That's all of them that they brought back from people. So maybe they didn't care what happened to them if they had got a little debris on them.
Yeah. So a few more fun facts is the Silverdome did open in 1975 with a capacity of 80,311. The roof actually collapsed 3 times, once in 1975, 1985, and then again in 2012 before it was demolished. And the Silverdome, this is actually a pretty timely fun fact. Mr. Tom Brady was, this was his first NFL appearance. He went 1 of 3 for 6 yards, and the Lions ended up winning that day 34-9. Things have turned around for him a little bit in the past few years, I guess. The Lions were 116 wins, 92 losses, and 1 tie when they had home field advantage. There was a record attendance of 93,682 people during a mass performed by Pope John Paul II. And the Silverdome did host Super Bowl 16 in 1982. So But moving forward after the implosion, the proposed development came in titled Project Cougar, which turned out to be an Amazon fulfillment center and delivery station. You can see here the fulfillment center and delivery station on site. This was the first time both facilities would have been or have been constructed on the same site. There's 823,000 square feet for the fulfillment center and a 200,000 square foot delivery station. This site is expected to generate over 1,500 jobs. Yes,
Joe, that's the fulfillment center is three stories, so it's
correct.
3 million something. That's just the footprint.
Yep.
800,000.
So, and here's a little vision of what it was going to look like once it was developed. So we were tasked with creating a scope, and this happens to be a pretty unique site as it sits along M59 in Oakland County. Updike Road runs on one of the frontages, which happens to be maintained by the Road Commission for Oakland County. And then the city of Pontiac is where the site is located, but just across the street is the city of Auburn Hills. So some of these intersections had multiple agencies with interest in each of the intersections. So we were, talking to both the Michigan Department of Transportation, the Road Commission for Oakland County, City of Pontiac, and City of Auburn Hills. So we ended up developing our study intersections, which ended up being 19 intersections in total. 5 of them were new site driveways. We were looking at the Updike Road corridor, just south of the M59 ramps, north of the intersection with Featherstone, along the Featherstone corridor, and then also the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard corridor, taking into consideration the ramps at M59 there as well. And we actually even extended out along University Drive to where M59 ends up becoming a local, not a local road, but it goes into the city of Pontiac. So it was a pretty large study area for this. There were some unique elements. When we were out there collecting our traffic counts in August of 2019, there was construction on I-75 and the M59 ramps. Those loop ramps there were closed all summer. So that meant for different traffic patterns. The Road Commission for Oakland County uses the SCAT system, which SCAT stands for Sydney Coordinated Adaptive Traffic System, which allows them to be able to collect traffic data every day, all day long. So we were able to go back and look at intersection data from May of 2019, which we could then compare to the August counts that we had taken and see where some of those balance out some of the traffic there and see where there was impacts. The eastbound off ramp onto Updike Road, for example, had a significant increase in traffic that we knew would change once those loop ramps were open. And like I said before, this was the first site for Amazon that had both a fulfillment center and distribution center on the same site. So there were a lot of reworks of how those buildings were going to be laid out on site and how traffic was going to be coming in and off site. Because Amazon is the beast that it is, and they have these facilities all over the country, typically we would go through and use the IT trip generation manual, which has followed various site studies over the years to develop their trip forecast. But in this case, we were supplied information from Amazon because they have their own charts based on similar facilities. They know it's very, they're very strategic about when their employees are coming in. They make sure that their trucks are not also scheduled to come in at the same time. They want to make sure that their employees are getting to work on time, leaving in a timely fashion. So they'll do some of their own on-site traffic management just to make that work out better. They provided us with their peak and off-peak hours as well. They try to avoid that roadway peak hour, so they have employees entering and exiting kind of outside of your typical 7 to 9 or 4 to 6 peak hours. So we took a conservative look at this. We wanted to look at the worst case scenario, and we also made sure to look at that holiday peak, which they see from November to January, just to make sure that the improvements we would propose would still be able to handle that traffic. So
Find out the business about the trucks too.
oh yeah, so like I said, the trucks stay separate. The trucks will enter 24 hours a day, but they limit it to it's really less than 10 trucks per hour that are going to be entering the facility. They want to keep everything spaced out, you know, outside of getting their employees there. They have their delivery vans now. You've probably all seen the blue vans that are part of their delivery station. So those vans, they also try and keep separate, but that's probably a bigger, throughout the day, a bigger volume of traffic from the site. So with our trip distribution, because there was a large percentage that we would be looking at during the peak hour of employee traffic coming in, we used a gravity model for this, looking at about a 20-mile radius from the site. And this equates to about a maximum of a 45-minute commute, which we felt was probably going to be reasonable. People outside of that, you know, it might be a little bit of a farther commute for them. So we went with the total population versus the percentage in those different areas within that 20-mile radius. There was about 71 surrounding cities and townships that we included in this gravity model. And then we just looked at, you know, the likelihood of an employee using the routes identified. You know, if they were coming using M59 to one of the larger generators, you know, taking I-75 and accessing the site through Updike or Featherstone to come up with. So this is kind of the distribution of trips that we ended up using from each direction. We completed our analysis using Synchro. We looked at the existing conditions with that adjustment, knowing that at the time we did our traffic counts, there was construction going on. We looked at the background, so the full build out year was 2021. The delivery station, which I have a video to kind of show you how the site looks, or looked a couple months ago, was opening in 2020, but the full build out with that fulfillment center was is actually scheduled for June of 2021. So we identified background improvements in the area. We looked at the future traffic for 2021 and then proposed future improvements due to the traffic that was being generated by the site. And then MDOT typically likes to see that an extended future, projecting traffic out another 5 years, just to make sure that any of those future improvements are really going to hold up. That it's not going to be something that in a few years down the road, once the developer is gone and the site is up and running, that there's not going to be need for any additional improvements. So this is a list of our background improvements that we proposed. And really the background improvements are, you know, your future traffic volumes about the construction of your proposed development. And most of it was just signal optimizations or a couple areas where a right turn lane would help operations at that intersection better. And then we moved on looking at our future improvements. So once we constructed once the development was going to be completed, we considered that those background improvements would have already been implemented. And then in this instance, there was signal optimization needed at some of those intersections. We had a proposed widening on Updike Road to allow for dual lefts into the site, a traffic signal at the main site entrance on Updike Road, another proposed traffic signal at the site driveway on Featherstone at Bay Street. And then there were proposed alterations to the M59 ramps with changes in the signalization and then a widening of that eastbound off ramp, since a majority of that traffic, if you remember, was going to be accessing the site from that ramp. So this made for a little bit with the aggressive, I guess you could say, construction schedule, and working with 4 different agencies, having input on things that, you know, they wanted to make sure were addressed. I know with the city of Pontiac, there were pavement improvements done on Featherstone Road, and making sure that even though the project was not within the city of Auburn Hills, they share right of way at the intersection of Featherstone and Updike. And then also having MDOT and the Road Commission review the improvements and the plan for construction, made for not a lengthy review process, but definitely some interesting conversations. So in the end, the project was approved. We were able to come to agreements with all the agencies. Even though we had our traffic data collection during large construction projects, this actually helped us, you know, this year or this past year, once COVID came around, we ended up applying a lot of the same ideas, looking at other developments where traffic volumes were much less than what had been seen in the past, and wanting to plan accordingly for if those traffic volumes get back to where they were at pre-COVID. You know, it was definitely an aggressive construction schedule. They're still working towards, there's a couple of signals left to be constructed as a part of this project. And it was definitely a one-of-a-kind facility, working with the trip generation being provided by our client. There were some site layout restrictions when they were trying to lay out those buildings that were due to the leftover Silver Dome debris. And Mike, can you speak on any of I think there were some concerns with the fill there in particular.
Right. Most of a lot of the Silver Dome structure and superstructure was part of the fill, which created some problems going forward with where they were going to place a big new building. So they had some troubles with that.
Yeah. So that leads us to the end here. I do have, stop sharing this video that we took. This would have been late October, early November of the site. And you can see some of the improvements in action. It starts at the M59 eastbound ramp. You can see Updike Road, and then it ends on Featherstone. So I have a couple things to point out, but I'll play the video first.
Well, one thing you should look for in the beginning, though, is along Updike near the distribution center. They have kind of a large parking area where they're charging electric vans. They have a large number of electric vans.
All right. All right. So I guess with that, does anyone have any questions?
Feel free to unmute yourselves if you guys have any questions for Jill or Mike.
So with working with such a condensed schedule like you had, was there, I guess, what was the biggest obstacle that you guys had to overcome to get this this done on time? I know that's always a struggle with projects like this.
I think a lot of it was just getting everyone to the table and getting everyone to agree on what improvements made the most sense, to get everyone to buy into what we were presenting as far as the traffic operations out there, the improvements and what those improvements needed to be. We had quite a few large table discussions going over that. So I think that was the biggest obstacle. Usually when you're doing this, you're working, the local planning commission, and it's really more of a residence-based thing, but this was definitely all of the agencies wanting to make sure that whatever improvements were going in were going to be the right ones.
It was also, I would say that, remember, it's not just the agency or one person from the agency. It's usually a couple of people from the agency, but also their consultants were there too. So it was a very difficult thing for one agency to emphasize one thing and another, maybe across the street, to emphasize something different. And there was always a constant, pushing and pulling on this thing to try and get to an answer. It's one thing that one agency liked, the other one didn't like so much because they thought they would benefit with something someplace else. It was really, it took a while to get everybody in the right frame of mind, I'll tell you that.
Uh-huh.
And it looks like somebody asked if both the distribution and fulfillment centers are open now. No, just the distribution center is open currently. They had an opening date of August 17th, 2020. So they've been operating through this past holiday season. And the distribution centers, or the fulfillment center, is set to open June 1st.
Any other questions for Jill or Mike?
I guess real quick, you'd mentioned that they had the electric vans. Were there any special, like maybe different considerations for on your end in terms of adding that in? That's just something new that was kind of cool that you mentioned.
I guess the only thing is, I just wanted to point that out. It's still part of their truck traffic, but I just wanted to point out that they have a big station for that, and that it's a kind of a new innovative thing that they're doing. That's all.
All right,
it wouldn't change the traffic demand. I didn't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Who did ROWE actually work for, and who was actually running the major part of the project for Amazon?
Seaford Properties. They're a developer out of Atlanta.
Okay.
So
The Amazon person we didn't really communicate with. We were just dealing with Seafried.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right, any other questions? Well, Jill and Mike, I appreciate you guys doing this presentation for us today for MSPE and ASCE on the west side of the state. We really appreciate it. I think we're all aware of the Silver Dome, but it's nice to see something big going in that space since they tore that down. So we really appreciate it. And everyone will be getting the PDH credits for this based on your organization you're a part of. So be aware of that. And then this has also been recorded. So we'll have this on our YouTube channel and we'll send the link out for that. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
So long.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
An excellent presentation. Thank you, Jill and Mike.
Thank you. Bye.
bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.